Today's episode is brought to you by our partners who make this ESPN playoff week possible. A huge thanks to Lariston Real Estate, delivering top-tier service in Oregon, Idaho, and Arizona. Shout out to Moon Real Estate Group, a team that's built on Aggie Pride excellence and supporting UC Davis football throughout the year. And we're proud to be backed by BPM&J, trusted attorneys at law who invest in the program and push this team forward. We appreciate all three for stepping up in a historic week for Aggie football.
Welcome back to Aggie Pride, a UC Davis football podcast. It's Twins Day because we have Brock Galvin and Brock Johnson both wearing mustard shaded yellow long sleeve attire. Brock, what's up, man? How are you?
What's up, Brock? Good to be on the show. Excited to be here. I know we've been talking about getting on the show for a while, so I'm excited to have this conversation, talk some Aggie football. And yeah, apparently it's Twin Day. I think I've met like 3 or 4 Brocks total in my life, and 2 of them have been through UC Davis football. So it's kind of a crazy small world.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about that. Was the other Brock Butler?
It was Brock Dale.
Oh, another quarterback.
Yeah, another quarterback. It was that was maybe the craziest one of all. Is like suddenly I'm transferring to a new school, and not only is there another Brock on the team, but he's in the quarterback room. So that was definitely crazy.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, he was the number 12. I can see like the IG profile picture for Brockdale right now. I played, so I had not met another Brock until UC Davis, and I was a walk-on, so I already kind of had like imposter syndrome and felt like I wasn't good enough. And then I make the team, but there's another Brock on the team, and I was a high school linebacker. But when I got to Davis, they moved me to D end, and they were like, "You're still too slow. Just keep eating and gain weight." But Brock Butler was a linebacker, so I was like, "Okay, they already have a Brock. He's playing my position. Like, I just feel like second-rate Brock." But so you transferred. I didn't know that. So where did you go initially out of Mission Viejo?
Hi, this is Scott Judson from Bold, Polisner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson. As the team prepares for Rhode Island, we want to remind you, get your estate planning done, get your trust, your wills, your powers of attorney all set. You never know what's going to happen. Please feel free to reach out. If you have any estate planning questions, any civil litigation questions, or any elder law questions, we'll be happy to help you in Walnut Creek or Sacramento. But with that, we'll say, go Ags!
Georgetown. I was at Georgetown for my freshman year. Got to play there at the end of the season. Our starter got hurt about midway through the season, and so they kind of rotated through all the younger guys. And I got to start a game and play quite a few snaps towards the end of the season, but just didn't really work out there. And honestly, I wanted to be at the highest level of football possible. And so I explored walking on at like USC and some other big D1 programs. And ultimately I visited Davis, and I like absolutely loved it. And Coach Hawkins was coming in to take over the program at that time. And so I met him, I met Coach Plough, I met Coach Creighton, and a lot of the other coaches who were there or coming on board at the time, and loved the program. And so I was all in on Davis, and transferred before I guess technically I transferred out of Georgetown after my fall semester of 2016. And then because of the way the quarter system worked out, I was kind of like in no man's land for the winter. And then I officially enrolled in Davis in the spring of 2017.
Okay. Really cool. Well, let's go back to the beginning. And this is, one of the things that we normally do on the pod is kind of get people's football story. You played at a very, I don't need to tell you, but for the listeners, like a legitimate, historic Southern California high school with a super rich quarterback history, which you can maybe touch on a little bit. But just would love to hear kind of like your first introduction into the game, being around it at a young age, and then what it was like to play in a program like that. And then how you made your way to UC Davis.
What's up, guys? Jason Moon here with Keller Williams Realty East Bay. Hey, let's go Aggies. Let's beat the Rams. And if you have any residential real estate needs from the East Bay to Greater Sacramento, I'd love to be a resource for you on and off the field. Go Aggies.
Yeah, totally. Thinking back, I don't have a memory in my childhood that doesn't have football. I don't have a memory before football. I think that's because even before I was born and before my dad was born, like it was football. My grandpa played collegiately. He played both baseball and football in college. But after college, he immediately became a football coach. He coached at a couple small schools in Northern Orange County. And then in the 60s or maybe the early 70s, I think, he became the head coach at El Toro High School down here in South Orange County. And that's where he was for about 15 years. Super winning coach there, won a bunch of CIF titles. This was before they had the actual state championship. And while he was there, he coached both my dad and my uncle, who played quarterback themselves. They both played collegiately. They both played professionally. My dad played in the CFL for a couple of years. My uncle played in the NFL for, I think, about 11 years. And so, like, I was born into a third generation, not just football family, but quarterback family. And then when I was about 1 or 2 years old, my grandpa took over at Mission Viejo High School, which crosstown rival from El Toro, but kind of a crazy story as to why he did end up taking over a Mission. And my dad at that time had just finished up his CFL career, so he became the offensive coordinator. And so for the first 16, 17 years of my life, every single day after school, I would walk to the high school and I would hang out and follow my dad around at the varsity football practices. And then eventually I became the water boy. And then I got upgraded to ball boy. And then I got upgraded to clipboard holder. And I got to like write down all the plays and like kind of like stat keep and whatnot. And then, yeah, I went there, of course, played all 4 years. And then we can get into the, details of the varsity career, but started off really rough. We lost our first 2 games. There was like a ton of expectations, right, and pressure, and it's this crazy, well-known public high school football program, and now I'm like the third generation, and I'm the quarterback, and we had a really horrible start to my first season as the starting quarterback, starting out 0-2, but then we didn't lose another game for the rest of my high school career, so we won back-to-back CIF titles. We won a state title my senior year, and it was just a really, really awesome experience. I can't speak highly enough about the talent that I was surrounded with. I mean, there's so many guys who I played with who are playing professionally still, and almost every single one of our coaches played professionally, which is insane at a public high school in anywhere. So just really, really lucky to grow up surrounded by so much great football minds, great football coaches, football players. And it was really the only thing that I ate, slept, and breathed for the first 23 years of my life.
Yeah, that's it.
Hey, Aggie Nation, Bob and Jan Larison here. We're so excited for you all.
Playoffs under the lights in the national spotlight. Show off your Aggie pride. We will be cheering for you all the way.
Get the win.
Let's go, Ags.
It's bringing it back for me too, because I watch those games. I'm a high school football fanatic still, even to this day. Like it's the reason why I subscribe to local newspapers. Online coverage is for the high school football news. But if I'm not mistaken, like the year that you guys won state, I feel like I remember watching it. Was your grandpa on the sidelines too with your dad when you guys won it? Because was your dad the head coach, or was he only the OC at that point?
He was still the OC. So from 1999, 1998 through 2016, which was the year I graduated, that whole time, my grandpa was the head coach and my dad was the OC. My uncle, once he retired from playing professionally, he came and he was like co-offensive coordinator / receivers coach. And so, yeah, when we won state, my grandpa was the head coach. My dad was the OC. My uncle was the co-OC. And then after that year, my dad retired to go watch me play collegiately. And my grandpa kept coaching for, I think he was the head coach for 2 or 3 more years. He said he wanted to see it after his graduating class, which is silly because obviously my sister didn't play football, but she was 2 years younger. So I think he stuck around for about 2 more years. And it just worked out really well that he retired in 2019 was, I believe, his last season. And then, the next year was COVID, and then things have really changed since then. But yeah, so I think he was there in total for about 20 years. And if I'm not mistaken, he is the second winningest coach in California state history behind the old coach from De La Salle, and he's the winningest coach in SoCal history. And I always like to shout out that my grandpa also took about a decade off because after my uncle graduated from high school, he went to all of my dad and uncle's college and pro games. And so second winningest coach in state history with 10 years off is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's insane. You kind of alluded to it a little bit about and I feel it, the pressure. Um,
Mhm.
we just had a cup of coffee, my wife and I, in LA for a couple of years. We lived in Pasadena. I coached at a public school, but a much different public school than Mission Viejo, a historic school in John Muir High School. It's where Jackie Robinson went. We had some dudes, but by that time, like the school had been kind of on hard times and was in a lower division. Mission Viejo
Mhm.
in the public school system of the CIF Southern Section landscape is an anomaly. You know better than me that the private schools dominate at that
Yeah.
level, but to have that level of success and then to have the like name to name to name from the different generations of Johnson on the nameplate of the back of your jersey, like what was that like for you? Because I feel it right now still. Like, whew, that could have been hard to breathe, especially the beginning of that season where you guys were struggling. How'd you cope with all that?
Yeah, it was tough. I definitely developed a lot of like perfectionist tendencies and people pleaser tendencies, and um, my family was really great to never put undue pressure on me. It wasn't like we sat around the dinner table and they, talked to me about I need to do this and I need to achieve that. And so I'm really thankful for the way they handled it. And I think that the reason specifically my dad was able to handle me so well is that he had my grandpa as his coach and offensive coordinator. So he got to kind of learn like, hey, this is what I do want to do with my son, and here's what I don't want to do. And so most of the pressure, if not all of the pressure that I felt was internal that I had placed on myself, or very external from like, newspaper, local
Yeah.
newspaper, or like some random friend of mine, and I'm at dinner at his house and his dad says something weird to me. Like that's way more of the pressure that I felt than anything that my family ever did. But yeah, it amounted to a lot of like perfectionism, and I was like super hard and strict on myself, on my teammates, on my friends. It was I think like I'm a drastically different person now than I was when I was 16, 17. And it's not just like, oh well, I'm more mature and I'm older. Like I'm a completely different person. The way I approach life, the way I think about things, completely night and day from what I was like, 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm. Really interesting stuff, and it makes me wonder like what happened from the time of Mission Viejo pressure Brock Johnson to the Georgetown UC Davis experience where you don't end up being QB1, but as Jake Mayer
Mhm.
tells us earlier this week on the pod, like you're making him dinner, you're like A plus teammate, and like quarterback support group for Jake. Um, and I think that takes us to like what a lot of people see because you are very much like in front of people, right? Like
Mhm.
you're well known, and that can have a different kind of pressure that comes with it too than the one you had in high school. So what happened in between where you were and where you are? Any moments along the way stand out as like some real kind of mountaintop or valley moments that created some of the change you see in yourself?
Yeah, this is really great questions. Jake, I always give him crap, and he gives me crap about like just our relationship. And I say that I was like his mom when we were at Davis because I'm like cooking him meals and stuff. But no, I think what happened in between is I would say through my freshman year at Georgetown, I was the same guy that I was in high school, super perfectionist. I had all these high goals and big dreams, and I think that that can be really helpful in a lot of ways. But I think it can also create a lot of unnecessary pressure for a lot of people in a lot of circumstances. And so for me, it was kind of serendipitously timed like during this transition period from Georgetown to Davis. I was going through some stuff personally and started going to therapy more regularly, which is something that I did as a kid. My parents have always been like big proponents of going to therapy, and they noticed even as like a little kid I was showing these like OCD tendencies, and I was like hyperactive and all these things. And you know looking back in hindsight, it was like, yeah, I had all this weird pressure going on internally as like an 8-year-old. So I ended up going to therapy. But anyways, I went to therapy again, during this transition period when I was transferring my freshman year. And my therapist that I worked with talked to me a lot about like what happens if you don't play in the NFL. What happens if, football isn't the end all be all? How do we uncouple yourself from this relationship with football? Like, I'm not sure if have you watched the Enigma documentary, the docuseries on Netflix with Aaron Rodgers?
I have watched portions of it, not the entirety.
Okay. Yeah, I literally just watched it the other day with my wife, even though it came out like a year and a half ago. And Aaron talks about how, he gets, and there's so many athletes, so many people who have achieved great things who tell a similar story, but he got to the mountaintop, right? He won the Super Bowl. He's celebrating with the team, pop champagne, drinking beer in the locker room. He gets on the team bus at like 2 a.m. and he just kind of like deflates. And he's like, okay, so now what? Like, this is the thing that I've worked for my entire life. This is the thing I've wanted my entire life. Okay, now I did it. Now what? Now who am I? And, he's definitely an enigma. And he's definitely like gone through now like a decade of soul searching and doing all this stuff that he's definitely an interesting guy. But that's kind of what I worked through with my therapist to a lesser extent. I didn't have to go to, South America and do ayahuasca. I kind of worked through it in a little room here in Southern California with my therapist. But it was really helpful for me, and it was really helpful to learn where a lot of these tendencies had come from and learn how they were really necessary for me as a young kid, and they served me during that time, but they're not necessary anymore. They're not something that's going to be advantageous for me moving forward. Like as I move into the professional setting and as I get married and have a wife, like there's a lot of things that I needed to work through and unlearn. And it just worked out really well that then I get to Davis and it wasn't like, okay, boom, you're competing for the job, because I sat out my first year. And we can get into the details of that, but Coach Plough kind of sat me down and was like, hey, you can do one of two things. You can stay on the roster and you can practice with the team, but realistically, you're not going to travel. Like we have Jake as our starter. We have CJ Spencer and Brock Dale, 2 veteran guys, so they're going to travel. We can't really travel 4 quarterbacks. And he said, or you could effectively take your name off of the roster, and instead, like you'll still get to be with the team, but you'll kind of almost operate as like my assistant for the year. And so that's my true sophomore year of school there. I was Coach Plough's assistant. Like I did everything with him. I was kind of like a GA in a sense. I wasn't technically on the roster. I got to like lift with the team and be with the team and have the locker and all that stuff. But like I wasn't on the team. And the benefit that I saw in that was I got way more time with the coaches and I got to travel. So I got to be there for the games. I got to be on the sidelines. And then, to end this story quickly is basically I sat behind Jake for 2 or 3 years. And over those 2 to 3 years, I got to slowly come to terms with, hey, you're not the guy. You're not QB1. Jake's legit. Love Jake. Best friend. Live with him. Like he's in my house. We're literally, well, I guess not my house. I guess it kind of is. I did live in that QB house first, and then he moved in second. So, but anyways, it was like just a perfect situation where like I didn't envy the guy ahead of me. I didn't think like, oh, Jake sucks. Like I should be starting over Jake. He was great. We were winning a lot of games. I got to feel like I had a big role in the team. And throughout that whole process, I got to kind of uncouple myself from my identity as a football player.
Yeah, really interesting. My wife is a mental health therapist, and I've got some OCD in me as well. And so a lot of what you said, like, was hitting home, even just the verbiage and terminology that you used. But and thinking about kind of the connection of mental health, and we talk about this with Trevor Facey on our podcast this week as well, and just kind of the hard parts of life that he's been through. But connecting it back to my wife, I know my wife first followed you on Instagram a number of years ago, and her sister runs a business on Instagram and followed you and would talk about you like, hey, this guy went to UC Davis. Do you know him? I'm like, I don't really know him. His name's Brock, though. I know he's cool. He went to Mission Viejo. And so, just to think about all of the creators, the business owners, even friends and family and people that you've been able to interact with. It's such a large scale now. And for those who are like totally in the dark and who are just like Aggie football fanatics who are like, wait, what are you guys talking about? Brock Johnson has an Instagram empire. He's got a big business and a lot of followers on Instagram, and helps a lot of businesses grow their Instagram and creators. grow their Instagram in a lot of great ways. And so thinking about like the professional Brock, especially with the knowledge of your upbringing and your football career, like talk to us about how the Instagram career and the business coaching career kind of came to be for yourself, and like, I don't know, just any interesting tidbits that you feel like were important moments along that, business journey for yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I oftentimes will, like, when I meet like one of my neighbors or something, I'll say I'm a marketing consultant, and then
Yep.
that's just kind of usually good enough for them to be like, okay, thumbs up,
Cool.
got it. And then like if we want to get more into the nitty gritty, it's like social media marketing strategist, if you will, whatever. Basically, it very much ties to my Davis career. So freshman year at Georgetown, before even the season started, before the fall semester had even started, I really wanted to like take the silver spoon out of my mouth. I wanted to cut the financial umbilical cord from my parents, stop relying on their credit card for paying for everything. And at the same time, I wanted to be able to like take care of my friends. Like that's huge for me. Like, we joke about me making dinners for Jake. That was huge for me. Like being able to, like, I would always invite guys over on the team, like Scotty Hendricks and Darius Livingston and Cooper and Colt and all these guys, invite them over and like, hey, I'm gonna just make dinner tonight. Like I'm just gonna make us all some food, some good tacos or whatever. But I wanted to do that my freshman year, and like I had no money. I was a freshman student athlete, and this was before the NIL days, and so I had to create a business for myself. And so my freshman year at Georgetown, it's really funny to say it out loud now. My first business was an online course specifically for moms, teaching them how to keep their kids safe on Snapchat. So that was like the first business that I had
Legit.
started. And it's evolved obviously and changed a million times since then. But I started that before my freshman year at Georgetown. Fast forward, as I'm leaving Georgetown, they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, we weren't aware of this. Is this in compliance? Like major red flags. And they were like, yeah, you should probably just shut down this business. So that sucks. But then I get to Davis and I meet with like some of the advisors and stuff, and I tell them about my business. And they had a completely different reaction. They weren't like, red flag, let's shut this down. They were like, let's make sure that you're doing this right. Let's make sure that you're doing this, in a way that's legal and compliant. And let's allow you to keep making money and running your business. And so thankful that the Davis compliance staff worked with me on that. And I did have to shut down my business for, I think, like 6 months while the NCAA investigated and made sure that, Bruce Edwards wasn't just illegally funneling money to the Ags through my business or whatever. But once the NCAA gave me the green light, they're like, hey, yeah, you're good to go. Resume the business. And it was really great to be also on a team where from the top down, like from Dan Hawkins all the way down, all of the coaches, all of compliance, everyone in the, organization supported me, and they didn't like talk shit or like put me down for having the business. They thought it was awesome. They would ask me about it. They really respected that I was trying to grow this business while I was at Davis. And then the business really took off right as my career was ending, or when I decided to end my career, which was like kind of during that weird COVID time. And so, yeah, I hung up the cleats and I picked up the laptop, so to speak, and continued to grow the business since then. But I really think I can't imagine how different the business would be. I don't even know if I would have a business or what it would be like today if I hadn't had 4 years during college of being supported and kind of hyped up by my teammates, my coaches, and everything. If I was at a different place where the compliance department was just like, yeah, no, you probably shouldn't run a business, I think I'd be in a really different spot today.
Yeah. I just think about how many people, I think it's when people are successful, there's a lot asked of people, and whether it's time or advice. And I think of that question, like, how do I grow? Which is one of the main goals it feels like that you help people with. It's like, how do I grow, Brock? How do I get to this number? How do I get to this profit? How do I get to this amount of sales and that sort of thing? Um, I Instead of asking you, how do you help people grow? I mean, people can sign up for the Insta Club Hub and they can get the maestro's, advice, which we'll put all the links, but they're going to know how to get it. More so like as you have been in your like 20s doing this, like, how have you personally handled the different ups and downs, and even some recent things that you posted, like shared more of your story? And I love when you do that, but some of them are like more humorous with like the where I was and where I am, but a lot of them are, I think, really encouraging for people to see. Like, hey, I remember one you posted, I don't know, a few weeks ago, of like, this was my first video in year one, this was my first video in year two, and just seeing like it just takes that work. So I guess, yeah, how have you been able to like kind of stick with it in, and even something, yeah, I'll stay with that. I have more, but I'll stay with that. How have you been able to kind of take care of
Okay.
yourself while it's growing?
Yeah, I think it's all goes back to sports. It all goes back to football. It all goes back to playing quarterback. Like, I think that there's so many things, great characteristics and great habits that we learn through sports, football, playing quarterback, that have translated to business and social media. Like, how do you post every single day? Well, when I was at Davis, I showed up and I lifted every single day. And there were things that made it easier, like Coach Burke's energy and the music in the weight room and being surrounded by the guys. And so I've just figured out, how can I apply those things and make it easier, my day-to-day posting, my day-to-day growth, my day-to-day execution now. But also recognizing that, like, it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be days where it sucks. There's going to be days where you wake up and you want to just stay in bed, and those sheets are so comfy at 4:40 in the morning, but you know that there's some 45-pound plates that need to be thrown around a little bit. And so I think that there's so many things. And then, like, you talk about leadership, you talk about presenting on camera is just like presenting to the team. Like, when I would get up in front of the team and talk, it's the same thing as when I'm making a reel, like making a podcast. I think it's so much of it has translated between my football career and my professional career now. And what I always think about is, like, if I could do X, Y, and Z in my football career, posting on Instagram is a million times easier. Like, if I can get up at this time, if I can show up for these workouts, if I can achieve these things, if I can put in these reps in my football career, well, then, anything that I do in business or my professional career is that much easier, because I've done things that are way tougher.
Hmm. It makes me move to another area that we kind of DM'd about. Yeah, I am not a social media guy historically, have not been on like Facebook. Like, I take it back to MySpace the last time I was active. I'm in that generation. But with the podcast, we dabbled in a little bit of X and then IG, and realized we kind of were just like, well, where are people engaging the most? And maybe because the podcast is visual, maybe because players were on Instagram, whatever the reason was, we just saw like, this is where we're gonna devote more energy. And I feel like it has like paid off for us with a lot more engagement and listeners and that sort of thing. But I have also really hustled it, like maniacally. And so and probably not all that great now that I'm feeling the wisdom that you have over there. But I have just felt like at times like that, maybe what I've heard from people is like kind of that the difficult side of social media, where you can like get glued to it, or you can really, it's really addictive. It's really hard to like set boundaries for yourself and not be on there all the time and that sort of thing. So I'm wondering, like, as someone where you're on it a lot, but I know you have a team that you work with now, like, how have you kind of navigated just, and I'm thinking about players who listen, I'm thinking about college students who listen, like, how have you navigated like the health side of being on social media versus, maybe some of the adverse I don't know, results of being on it?
Yeah. No, definitely. And I want to shout you out. You have been hustling it, and you've been doing a great job. Really. I mean, we were even talking about it in our group chat, which is like 10 of us Davis football players. We graduated 6 years ago, and we talk every single day. And yesterday we were talking about you and the podcast and what a great job you're doing. So, like,
Thanks, man.
all respect, seriously, kudos to you for how hard you're working on it. And it really shows how, with your community of listeners and with your community of followers, which is awesome. For me and the whole like mental health side of things, when it comes to Instagram, I really do very little scrolling, like just watching. If I do, it's usually on TikTok, which for me, I'm not really active on TikTok, so I can go to TikTok and it's not a place where I am going to compare what I'm creating to what I'm seeing on TikTok because it's different, right? My algorithm's different there. I have different kinds of content there. So that's where I go to scroll. I rarely scroll on Instagram. When I do scroll on Instagram, I'm very conscious of everything I'm consuming. And I'm trying to take little elements and little pieces. Oh, why was this video so engaging? Why was this hook grabbing my attention? Why was this video so exciting for me? And then how can I apply those things to my own content? So I very much treat it, like a business. I treat it like I'm watching film. I'm taking little elements and learning little lessons from every post that I see. And then I think another big thing is, and I got this from my uncle. He told me this when I was like 12. He said, Brock, don't ever read the newspaper. And that was kind of weird advice to give a 12-year-old because
like,
no one was writing about me in the newspaper. But I was like, I hardly know how to read. I don't read anything. I'm definitely not reading the newspaper. But I get what he was saying, which is that he was playing in the NFL. And so what he was saying is, don't read what other people say about you. And so for me at that time and throughout my high school career and throughout my college career, no one was writing about me during my college career, but now in like my professional career, it's don't read what people write about you. And that means if you have a post that's going viral and it's reaching a lot of people, that means it's reaching a lot of strangers, a lot of people who don't know anything about you. So then you read the comments and you're reading a bunch of stuff from people who are literally strangers, but they think they have an opinion about you. So don't read it. Don't ever look up your name. Don't ever, search how you're doing. Like I think it's wild when I hear people who are like, yeah, I was looking myself up on Twitter the other day. Why? Did you just want to have a bad day? Did you want to like ruin your psyche for the next 24 hours?
Yeah.
Don't look yourself up. Don't read the comments. Stay away from that stuff. Like I view myself as a business owner first and foremost. And so it's my job to create content to grow the business. It's not my job to consume what other people are saying about me. And so when I'm on social, I'm trying to treat it like a tool for my business, a tool to create content, get more attention, get more eyeballs, convert those eyeballs into customers, and not spend a bunch of time getting bogged down in people's opinions of me.
Yeah. Really difficult for people to stick with that, I think, in our day and age. I think it's probably one of the pieces that makes you successful is like the ability to just continue to create despite whatever's out there. And it goes back to football a little bit too. Like if you think about being in the arena and like literally having fans, and some fan bases in the FCS are legit. A lot of them kind of suck, but you might get heckled in Montana. You might get heckled at a, Cal Poly game down in Slow or across the causeway in Sacramento. This week we're at home and it is the ESPN week game, which for little UC Davis is big time because we've been talking about it all week. We've been on the ESPN family of networks when we're away, especially at like a Montana or Montana State. We have not hosted at home. And you were saying before we clicked record, like, oh yeah, I'm watching the games. So just talk about this team specifically, like put on the generations of Johnson knowledge and give us like, I don't know, one or two things you're seeing from the team, maybe a Caden Pennick take, a Tim Plough take, and what you're looking forward to in this weekend.
Yeah, I know I'm fired up for the game. I try to tune in and watch whenever I can, and really fired up with this team overall. It's awesome to see the decades of hard work that have built a really awesome program in UC Davis, and now seeing how flippin' talented this team is. Like they've got some dudes, they've got some guys who I watch. I'm like, oh, we would have loved to have him in 2017. They're really exciting to watch. They're fun. They spread the ball around on offense as always. Plow's always cooking something up. I love seeing little wrinkles that he's pulling out every single week. And Caden Pennick's fun to watch. He's definitely not a Jake Mayer or Brock Johnson type. He reminds me a little bit of like watching Hunter Rodriguez in practice. But no, he's super fun. He definitely can do a lot of things that, me, Jake, and Miles could never even dream of doing. And just their offense overall is always going to be fun and exciting, and with a fun, spread it around, move it around, run around, make some freak plays quarterback like that. It's, hold on to your butts because it's fun.
Yeah, we don't often have a guy who can scoot that much. You bring up Hunter. Hunter could move around.
Yeah.
And for those who don't remember, he was quarterback. I know the year we beat Tulsa, I believe that's 2021. think he was a Sacramento kid as well, just like Caden Pinnock is. We'll finish with some more fun and then a serious note if you want, or you go humor because you're funny. Score prediction for the game Saturday night. And then we give people kind of just like an open-ended final word to the pod community, like players, coaches, parents, fans, students, alums. So yeah, score prediction and then your final word.
Score prediction 26-14.
All right.
I think I don't know if we're going to go for 2 and miss it and then try to go for 2 again and miss it, or we're going to, miss a PAT or something, but 26-14, a little bit of a weird score.
Okay.
And then my final word is 2 words, which is find joy. It's one of Plough's mantras. He preached it so much to us at Davis, and it legitimately changed my life. I have a huge, painful tattoo on my ribs that says find joy, and it was inspired by Coach Plough's teaching, which came from Coach Soker before him, and just being able to detach from the results. And I think that can be applied to any area of life, whether you're working your 9 to 5, whether you are taking care of your kids, whether you are, coaching football or studying for your next exam. It's really detaching from the outcomes, because the outcomes you can influence, but you can't ultimately control. You can't have 100% control over the final score, over the grade of the paper, over, what mood your kid is in today, whatever. You can only control your attitude, your effort, your emotions, how you show up. And then a big part of that is like finding joy in the process. So like in the day-to-day routine, in the studying for the exam, in the practice and the reps you put in, whatever it is that you're, doing in your current stage of life, finding joy in that, finding the little things that spark you, that fill you up. That's something that I try to do every single day. And it's something that I truly live my life by. So when people are like, what's your 5-year goal? What's your, big vision? What's next? I'm like, I don't know. I want to keep finding joy. I have a hell of a lot of joy in my life right now, and I want to keep on keeping on finding as much joy as I possibly can.
Yeah. And the spreading to other people is what, I see out of your life. And that's what I've experienced from your life as well, which, again, is just like a unique, I would say, situation where like you are able to impact so many lives. And, I just want to say thank you for, I think, representing 1, Brock's really well, 2, mustard shirts really well, but 3, like the UC Davis Aggie football community. I know that there's a lot of guys who are proud of the work that you do, the way you kind of handle yourself through it with some levity, but also with that drive and that seriousness and that discipline. Like, we often see the finished product, but as someone who knows just a little bit of a glimpse of the creation aspect, like that's grueling hard work. That is not sexy. And so, I'll just say one more thing. Like, for me, it's encouraging when fear can play a big factor in decisions with either the podcast or with, the documentary I'm doing or my job. It's like sometimes fear can hold you back from taking the step. And I feel like something you always preach is like, just freaking stop overthinking it. Just post the thing. Like, people are going to forget about it in a second. Like, just create. We are human beings made to create it. Some of it's going to be great. Some of it's not. But I think ultimately, it does make sense that like joy is your mantra, because that is what you're helping other people do. So thanks again, dude, I know it's a busy week, for spending some time with me, and looking forward to continuing to follow your journey in the years moving forward.
Of course. Yeah. Well, Brock, thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate you for letting me be here and yap about ball for a little bit. Go Ags, as always. Can't wait to watch this weekend. And yeah, just thanks so much, and keep up the great work. Really, I mean every word I said. This show is awesome, and you're doing an awesome job, putting Davis a little bit more on the map than it already is, and just continuing to spread Aggie pride and spread the message and get our names out there. And I think it's awesome. So keep up the great work.
Appreciate it.